8.3, simple interest. So in this section, we're going to be looking at calculating the simple interest of an investment. And we will also be looking at calculating the future value using the simple interest. So it all starts with this formula in front of you. I is equal to PRT. I is standing for interest. P is the principal amount, the amount that's borrowed or loaned. R is the annual interest rate. And T is time measured in years. PRT means principal times rate times time. $4,500 at 9.5% for 6 years. And they give us the formula, I is equal to PRT. Interest is equal to PRT. So what you need to do is be able to identify that this is the simple interest formula. We do have what's called compound interest, and we will be reviewing that in the next section. In this case here, knowing that we're looking for a simple interest, we're going to identify what we have. The $4,500 is my P. My 9.5% is my annual interest rate, and 6 years is my T. So you can see that we substituted those values in directly, replacing the P, the R, and the T. And then you place this in your calculator, or you can multiply it by hand. It may take you a while, but I would say put it in your calculator twice and make sure you get the same answer twice before you say this is your final result. So the final answer here is the simple interest is $2,565. Notice they have 0 cents on there. So since the principal gave you cents, 0 cents on there, you're going to round to the nearest cent, unless it says otherwise. What to do if they give you time measured in months? So if you are saying that the time is 1 month, remember you're going to write this as a fraction. This is 1 month out of a total 12 months in a year. So that's where they came up with the 1/12 for time. That's your T. And then if you do 6 months, we just did 1 month. Now we're doing 6 months. So 6 months is going to be 6 months out of the total 12 months. And you see that's going to give you 1/2 or 5/10. And that is what they're using here on that second equation for simple interest. Then of course, if you have 12 months, 12 months divided by 12 months is just going to give you 1 whole year. And this is where they get the 1 from. So we have $1,500 for our principal. Our interest rate is 4.5%. Written in decimal form is 45 thousandths. And then you need to make sure that if you receive time measured in months, take the months and divide it by 12 and place that as your time. The principal P is borrowed at a simple interest rate R for the period of time T. Find the loan's future value A. So we're finding A, or the total amount due at the time T. So this is also called the total amount or future value. So they gave us the formula here. It says A is equal to P parentheses 1 plus R T close parentheses. They identified that the principal amount is 3,000. Rate is 3%, which we're going to change to a decimal, so 0.03, 300ths. And time is measured in 2 years. So you have P, R, and T. And we want to keep an eye on the fact that they want us to round to the nearest cent. So we will follow this formula. I have A, this is what we're looking for, the future value, is equal to 3,000 times 1 plus my interest rate, 0.03, times T, which is 2 for 2 years. All right, and if you write this out correctly, you place this in your calculator, you should come out with a nice monetary value. Just make sure it says round to the nearest cent, so I will show that cent. $3,180.00. And this will be my future value. Below, you can see that there are different ways to represent the future value. Principal plus the interest is our future value. And we have interest turns into PRT, which when you factor out the P, we end up with the same equation. So what they're telling you is all three of these options are equivalent, and it depends on what you have. Again, A is your future value or your total amount. So here's the formula once again for calculating the future value for simple interest problems. All right, so A is your future value. P is dollars. That's the amount that is loaned out or the amount that you are receiving. Simple interest rate is R. And remember, it has a decimal. And then T is measured in years. And the simple interest rate is the annual simple interest rate. So we have A is equal to, just rewriting this, P parentheses 1 plus R times T. And on the previous slide, you saw that there was a few different ways to represent this formula. So this is one way. If you have your P and your R and your T, you can still go ahead and use this. If I were to what I call distribute P times 1 and P times RT, we would end up with our future value is equal to P times 1 is P. P times RT makes it PRT. So this is an equivalent formula as we shown on the previous slide. Now, the other thing we can do is we know that PRT is I. So I can say A is equal to P plus I. So again, if they give you the interest and you know your principal amount, then you can go ahead and use this last formula because you know principal plus interest is your future. All right. And then if you have P and R and T, you can use either one of the first two formulas to calculate your future value. The principal P is borrowed at a simple interest rate R for a period of time T. So this word simple tells you which formula you're going to go to. Remember I said we're going to do compound interest next. So when you see that it's also interest, I don't want you to choose the wrong formula. So this one here gives us find the future value A, or the total amount due, if P is $7,000. Let me write that a little bigger here. The amount that's borrowed is $7,000. And R is 10%. And they wrote it like this. And T is 6 months. All right, so a few things we need to do. We need to change that interest rate into a decimal from 10% to a decimal. So if you get it into decimal form, you can write it as 1/10, or you can do it as 10 hundredths. Either way will work for me. Then we're going to take the time. Remember, we don't want it in months. It needs to be measured in years. So we take 6 divided by 12 for 12 total months in a year, and that gives you 1/2. And again, if you want to break this into a little further to decimal form, you can just say 5/10. So it really is up to you. Normally, when I use this formula, I just insert everything in exactly the way it's given in the original equation. So I would say that my future value is equal to my principal, $7,000, times 1 plus R, which is the 10%, times time. And I would put the time in as 6/12, which reminds me that I did my conversion of the months. So that really is up to you how you want to do that. You could always insert the 1/2, or you can insert the 5/10 in for your time. And then when you place this all in your calculator, make sure you place your parentheses in there correctly, an open parentheses and a closed parentheses. You are going to get this dollar amount, $7,350. And we're going to take a look. It says do not round into the final answer, then round to the nearest cent. So they want to know that you have 0 cents there. And this would be the future value. If you borrow $7,000 at an interest rate of 10% for 6 months, the future value is $7,350. The principal P is borrowed and the loan's future value A at time T is given. Determine the loan's simple interest rate. Determine the simple interest rate R to the nearest 1/10 of a percent. All right, so they gave us our principal amount, which is $5,000. They gave us the future amount, which is $6,375, and time is 5 years. Now, if you look on the formula sheet that we have listed on MyMathLab, you will see that you have a formula for this, and it says R, it's under the simple interest. It says R is equal to future value divided by the principal minus 1, all divided by T. So we could use the original formula we have for the future value, substitute in the information we have, and then end up solving for R, or we can just use this formula which is already solved for R. So what we're going to do now is insert our values. Our interest rate is equal to $6,375 over the P, principal amount is $5,000, minus 1, all divided by 5 years. And if you place this in your calculator, you will have an answer of 55 thousandths. Now remember, this is a rate, so rates are written in percent form, and we need to change this into a percent. So move your decimal 2 places to the right and add your percent symbol. Next, we're looking at rounding to the nearest 1/10 of a percent. Well, we don't have to round because these are the only numbers we have. So the answer is 5.5%. And that's what we would place in our box over here for the final answer. So once again, look for that formula so that you can solve for R. Using the interest formula, A is equal to P times 1 plus RT, solve for the indicated variable, and it's asking us to solve for P. And this is actually problem number 7 in our homework. So taking the original formula for future value, remember this is using simple interest, what you need to do is solve for P, and they're asking you to get P all by itself. So you have to remember this is P times something in parentheses. And you can just think of the set of parentheses as just some number. So if you had a number times P, to get P by itself, we would have to divide by that number. So what we're essentially doing is we're going to divide by whatever's with P. And we're going to leave it in parentheses, just like that. What we do to one side of our equation, we have to do to the opposite side. So remember, we're dividing by 1 plus RT. And when we do this, this entire item in parentheses divides out. That's considered 1 over 1. And 1 times P is P. And this leaves us with A divided by 1 plus RT. And that would be up to you if you want to keep the parentheses on there. You don't have to. But this is the final answer. It is the equation solved for P. Determine the present value P you must invest to have a future value A at simple interest rate R after time T. So they gave you your future value A is $3,000, your interest rate 9.5%, and T is 9 months. So the first thing we need to do is translate that rate into a decimal form. So 9.5% will change into 95 thousandths. Time, 9 months, we're going to change that to 9 months out of a total 12 months. You can reduce this fraction if you choose to. And if you'd like further, you can change it to a decimal form. Now, what we're going to do is to determine the present value P using the formula they gave us. What you need to make sure to pay attention to, it says round up. Round up. It doesn't say that round to the nearest cent. It says round up. So no matter what is in that hundredths position, you're going to increase it. Let me show you what I'm speaking about. So I have P is equal to 3,000 divided by 1 plus my R times T. Now you can use the 9 over 12, the 3/4, and in this case, I'll just go ahead and put the 75 hundredths. Once again, you can use any of these to insert for time T, as long as you trust your work. All right, place this in your calculator. And I'm just going to put tildes because I'm not going to write all of these numbers out. I'm coming up with 2800 decimal point 4667, and it goes further than that. So remember what I said, round up to the nearest cent. So the nearest cent in this case is going to be in the hundredths position. And no matter what that number is on the right-hand side, we automatically round up. So the principal will equal to $2,800.47. And this would be the present value. In order to start a small business, a student takes out a simple interest loan for $7,000. That's obviously my P, for 3 months. There's my time. And at a rate of 11%, R. Part A, how much interest must a student pay? Part B, find the future value of the loan. All right, so since we do know that it says simple interest on here, and the first part is to find the interest, you are looking for I is equal to principal times rate times time. And that's the formula we're going to use. So inserting the values that you have I is equal to 7,000 times, remember my R is 11%, so that's going to give you 11 hundredths. And time is 3 months. And I said that I like to just say divide by 12, so I know I counted for that. Again, you can change the 3 over the 12 to however you'd like to read it. Okay, place this in your calculator. We're just finding the interest, and the interest is coming out to be $192.50. So that is the first value. Interest is $192.50. Part B is asking you to find the future value. So if you remember, if you have your interest amount, your I, and you also have your principal amount, you can use an easier formula which is future value is equal to the original principal plus the interest amount. So A is equal to $7,000 plus the interest that you just found, $192.50. And when you add this together, remember it's always saying round to the nearest cent in this case. We're just adding these two values together, so $7,192.50. And this will be your future value. So a two-part problem. What helped us to begin with is the fact that they said simple interest, so we knew which formula to go to. A bank offers a CD that pays a simple interest rate of 3%. So this is R. How much should you put into this CD? That's what we're looking for. In order to have $4,500 for a home entertainment, that's a future value, so that's going to be your A in 2 years, T. So how much would you put in on a CD? That is how much would you invest? That's your principal. So we're looking for P in this case. And if you recall, our formula that we used for P is equal to A divided by 1 plus R times T. And we're going to keep in mind that this says round up to the nearest cent. So let's take the information we have. We're looking for P. We want a future value of $4,500. We have 1 plus. Now R is 3%, so remember we're going to rewrite that as 0.03 300ths times 2 for 2 years. Place this in your calculator and we are coming up with 4245 decimal 2830, and I'll just stop right there. So that's approximately this one. And let me change that to approximately since I'm just stopping. We are now going to round up to the nearest cent. So it doesn't matter. It does not matter what these numbers are afterwards. We are automatically going to add 1 because it says to round up. So our final value on here is that we need to invest $4,245.29. It says round up. So we want to be careful in this chapter. Make sure you read the difference between rounding and rounding up. Make sure you round correctly to the nearest decimal place. Real important in this chapter.